Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Julianne, and today I'm here with my colleagues, Pat, Brad, and Paul. And we're really excited to be back with you today. Very happy the proposal implementation plan went smoothly. And today we're going to talk about the second installation, I guess, of low cost, high speed, and evaluate the priority location for the four that have been designated by the FRC. So today we're going to start off by reviewing the problem and how we're going to consider the four regions. Consider the criteria, name the criteria that we think are the most important that we based our analysis on. We'll then review each region based on our criteria, give you our recommendation and the risks of our recommendation, and then at the end, if there's any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. So I'm going to hand it over to Pat.
Good afternoon, my name is Pat. I'm going to talk about the statement of problem as well as the criteria we used to address this problem. So the problem is clear. The FRC must select one of four competitive corridors. They must choose the priority corridor to start construction on immediately. This is a congressional mandate. One of four must be selected. This corridor must be built by 2020, and it must be built before construction on the other corridors can even begin. So it is very, very important that we help you identify the project most likely to succeed to ensure the continued long-term success of this project. We used four simple, but we believe effective criteria to evaluate the proposals. First was demand. Will there be enough riders? Will the project be successful on those grounds? Second, cost. Is it feasible? Is it cost-effective to build this proposal? Third, public benefit. Who will benefit and how much will they benefit? And finally, we looked at implementation of the proposals. What's the likelihood of success? Because as we discussed, the long-term success of this project is contingent on the short-term success of the project we select today. With that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Brad for the regional analysis that we did on each of the projects.
Okay. Again, my name is Brad. So we're going to start with the two regions, or two of the regions that we felt were the two lowest priorities, specifically the Midwest and the Northwest. Just to start off, you can see there's not a very large speed gain. It's only 30 miles per hour when you're going to this new transportation system for those two regions. And additionally, in the Midwest specifically, we're worried about the regional impacts of different cities. Specifically, we're a little bit worried about Detroit. We're worried that if we put these transportation systems in there, Detroit or other distressed cities in the area might have some real negative impacts on them. And so we want to basically give them a chance to think about how they're going to deal with that a little more before we actually implement this there. Additionally, the two biggest problems, though, with these two regions is we're afraid about their ability to integrate with the transportation systems that are already there. We don't think they have great public transportations there compared to the other ones, which we'll see later. And so the Northeast is one that we think is a better option than those first two, partly because of that transportation system. They do have great transportation systems in the Northeast for them to add on to. And it will do a really good job of connecting a lot of really major cities. But when we're looking at the dollars per rider, it's $3,000 per rider, which seems a lot, especially because it's only 70 miles per hour better. And we're a little uncomfortable with that when we compare it to California, as you'll see later. Another big issue with the Northeast is that we're worried about all the regional alliances that have to line up. There's a lot of different states in here. There's a lot of different things going on. And to keep all those in line all the time, especially with the political climate, we're just worried about how that's going to fall through the success of this project, because the project's going to take a significant number of years to finish. And so with that said, you can kind of tell California is what we're thinking is going to be the best option here. They have 140 mile an hour speed gain in here. And they're expecting it only costs $1,200 per rider. That's a lot less than the $3,000 per rider. Again, this will also connect two really major metropolitan areas in San Francisco and the LA area. And it will also really easily integrate into some of the strong transportation system there, for instance, in the BART system in San Francisco. And one big thing about this area that's different than the Northeast is there's really only one main way to get from San Francisco to LA if you're going to be driving. Is you can only go down the I-5 corridor. And we think this is something that we can differentiate between those two. We can find a way to stop some of the congestion that goes on there, specifically in like the Grapevine area. I don't know if you guys have ridden in the Grapevine area. It's not a great place to drive, and personally, I'm not a big fan of it. And one other major point with California is that it's one state. We're not having to worry about all these different states coming together. It's one. And we can just worry about this one entity. We don't have to have these lots of different states working together here. So with that,
So to hammer this home, we want to review why we believe California should be the priority location. California wins in the 4 big questions of demand, cost, public benefit, and implementation. In terms of demand, we see a higher demand for riders. We see a higher speed gain, which will correlate with a higher demand for riders, meaning continued success for the project. We see more cost effectiveness for the California project in comparison to the others, especially the Northeast project, which is its closest competitor. We see really strong public benefits. Now, in both the Northeast plan and the California plan are great plans. But in terms of public benefits, we see important differences here in terms of the important regional connections and in terms of reducing congestion. And finally, but very, very importantly, implementation. As we've said again and again, the short-term success is vital to the long-term success. We believe, based on our criteria, that California has the strongest chance to implement efficiently, to have short-term success, which will benefit all of the corridors and this entire project in the end. With that said, though, there are some risks to the California project. I'm going to turn this over to my colleague Paul to address those risks.
Thank you. Now, as we've said, the California project is the clear advantage in these 4 projects. However, they do come with some inherent risks. Part of that is that we have natural disasters in California. We have earthquakes all the time, we know this. And because of that, we can rely on technology. Fortunately, we do have technology going on in high-speed rail right now that is earthquake resistant in both rail and cars. This helps mitigate that problem. Secondarily, we have to worry about maintenance. This is the longest track, but it's also consolidated under one unified state and therefore would be controlled under the state DOT, which streamlines the administrative upkeep of records of what needs to be updated, what needs to be maintained, and personnel dispersion to take care of those problems. Now, last is fiscal solvency. And fiscal solvency is a very big piece of this because we need to ensure that the state is fully invested or equally invested with the FRC. Now, in doing this, they need to demonstrate a will to bear the burden of this cost, as we've said in our initial proposal for evaluation. And this was done through the passage of bond initiatives. And because of that, they've said that they are willing to sell bonds up to their needed levels to ensure that they are equally committed to the goal of bringing high-speed rail to the California region just as the FRC is.
So in conclusion, I think as you've heard from our group, we really believe that California would be the best place to start the high-speed rail project for its many strengths, that because it's has low cost per rider. It's a lower environmental impact than many of the others, especially because the decrease in congestion, which is so huge in California. It avoids the potential problems of regional integration, which is really important when you think about the politics around the issue. And most importantly, there's a really high chance of short-term success. We really believe that this could be the fastest, best program to go with for our goal in 2020. So if there's any questions, I'd like to take them at this time. Thank you. Great.
I have questions. So I saw in your table, which I liked a lot, sort of comparisons, states by state. How did you? So there was one data point about cost per rider. How did you calculate that?
I'll turn this over to our economist in chief, but roughly, I can handle this as well. We figured out the predicted number, the forecast number of riders and the forecasted cost, and figured out for every dollar spent, how many riders were going to be. I'm sorry, vice versa. For every rider, how many dollars would need to be spent to get that rider on a high-speed rail.
So you forecasted some higher number of riders that might be using the new system?
No, we relied on the data provided.
Right.
Yep, we relied on the data provided.
Okay. Thanks.
Question about retrofitting. I see in California, the current speed is 79 miles per hour, which is less than 110. So all of the track there would have to be retrofitted in addition to the cars and the engines. Did you consider that in your ease of implementation? Whereas in the Northeast, it's 150 miles per hour already.
Yeah, we actually thought about that. We made the assumption that that was part of the estimated cost that was provided for us, because we were given the data of the speed that it currently is at. And we also actually thought of it in some ways as a positive in terms of short-term job creation, that more jobs would be created for the lifting of the rails and the implementation of the new ones.
Why is the public benefit for the Northwest minimal? I mean, it seems like you're going to have some of the same benefits as you would for California as far as easing congestion along those lines.
A lot of that comes out of the fact that the size of the cities are just not nearly as large. I mean, if you compare Portland.
Cities aren't as large as California?
That's Northwest. The Northwest.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Northwest.
No, I was talking about the Northeast. Or, I'm sorry, did I?
Yeah, you said Northwest. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, okay. Go on, continue.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Why, okay, I misread. Why, for Northwest, let's go ahead and answer for Northwest. So why is Northwest public benefit listed as minimal?
Compared to California specifically? Well, I guess for two main reasons. One, the size of the cities you're connecting are just not nearly as large, so you're not going to have near as many people on them. I mean, connecting Portland and Seattle they're big cities, but it's not San Francisco and it's not LA. They're just way bigger there. And also in the Northwest, we didn't feel that they had the public transportation systems already in place in the same extent that you have in California. I think I mentioned with BART, for instance. Although Portland and Seattle, they do have public transportation systems. The ones in California are just much more robust and much more extensive. And we feel that people, if you're traveling on a high-speed rail, you're not bringing a car with you. You need really good public transportation once you get there. We feel those were the were able to take advantage of it the most. So.
I had a quick question for clarification. So it sounds to me, in that response, that you use California as your baseline for which you compared public benefit of at least the Northwest. Was that your approach across all regions?
I can speak to that a little bit. If you go back to the comparison slide. This is obviously a relative project. You used our evaluation system we proposed and used it well, implemented it well, and approved 4 really great projects that all clear the hurdle bar necessary. So this is a relative comparison analysis. We were looking at 4 great projects and we're trying to distinguish between them. So you'll see, especially for public benefit, those are relative comparisons that came after we analyzed the various qualitative descriptions.
So you compared them against each
other, yes. Yeah.
In addition, we saw a big split between the Northwest and Midwest, comparing it to the Northeast in California. We felt the public benefit was really great in Northeast in California, and so it was kind of like comparing those two in general to the Northwest and Midwest.
I have one question. It's not really part of your criteria that you were given, so I won't. I'm just curious. I'm thinking about, at least my conception of the kind of car culture of California. Do you think culturally there might be some difficulty convincing people to leave their car behind and take high-speed rail, whereas in the Northeast there tends to be more
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one we definitely talked about and thought about. So the Northeast has the strongest train culture out of any area in the country. Nowhere near the level of Europe or other countries, but it has the strongest train culture. California has a strong car culture. We, in our analysis, the comparison of the cities, were actually looking at the train as a direct competitor with flights, with people flying from San Fran to LA. So hopefully, we believe it will have an effect on the car ridership, but the more significant impact is going to be versus relative to air travel. Questions? Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. We hope that this was helpful as you choose the priority location to evaluate.
Thank you very much.